So our next presenter is Adriana Ezekiel from the University of Alabama. And Adriana's paper is Seasonal Effect in the Music of Stardew Valley. Adriana, we are so happy that you're here today and you're able to share your paper with us. Please start whenever you're ready.
Can everyone see my screen? Is it showing?
Yes, looks good.
Awesome. Yeah. Stardew Valley is a casual farming simulator and role-playing game. It was created by a solo developer, Eric Barone, who operates under the name concernedape. Barone not only created the story, graphics, and programming, but he also composed the soundtrack alone. He wanted to create a game that was reminiscent of the old Harvest Moon games he played when he was young. We can see this reflected in the style of graphics and music. Since its release in 2016, it has sold over 20 million copies worldwide. Fans and critics celebrate its memorable and touching music. In Stardew Valley, you will farm, fish, and raise animals. Additionally, you will find yourself foraging, mining, and even battling enemies. Along with all these tasks, it is still important to maintain a work-life balance as you make friends with the locals and possibly even marry one. Unlike other games featured in this mini symposium, Stardew Valley is not an MMO. It is generally played alone, although you can create a co-op farm with some online friends. There are also large online communities dedicated to discussing this game. In Stardew Valley, time progresses on a seasonal calendar and a game clock. Depending on your playstyle, you may spend approximately 13 minutes in real life per in-game day, and each in-game season lasts 28 days. Today, I will explain how Barone's music reflects the seasons and experiences of affect. First, I will demonstrate the idea that led me to this presentation. I will play 2 audio clips from Stardew Valley. Consider which season each clip reminds you of. Now here's the second clip. If you said summer for the first one and winter for the last one, then you would be correct. To me, an avid player of the game, I hear each season very strongly in the musical cue. However, I have spent more hours than I care to admit in this game, so maybe I just associate the season with the visuals and experiences that accompany these tracks. But I believe that there is something in the tracks that reminds me of my experiences of each season. I did this same activity with 40 participants who have never played Stardew Valley. Participants listened to 4 tracks from the game and were asked to match the track with the season they felt went with it. Participants ranged from ages 18 to 55. They all had varying musical and gaming backgrounds. All were from the United States and therefore likely experienced seasons similarly and perhaps have had similar musical associations to seasons. The green represents a correct match, which is the season that the game corresponds with the track. As you can see, the majority matched correctly for each season. Some participants even left comments on why they chose the way they did. Most felt strongly about their choice. These comments reflect the music's connection to seasons and reveals intense experiences of affect. So what is affect anyway? It is a concept that comes from the field of psychology, and simply put, affect is a feeling, such as joy, excitement, fear, or loneliness. Regarding video games, Julian Grosso has proposed that music communicates affect to the player. Additionally, Isabella Van Elfren cites affect as one of 3 key musical components in game immersion. I propose that the music in Stardew Valley may present the listener with particular seasonal affects, or distinct feelings that one associates with a particular season. This seasonal affect seeks to immerse the player deeper into the game ecology. Many game scholars have discussed the importance that music plays in game immersion. This is particularly important in Stardew Valley, as the player will likely be experiencing a different season in real life than in the game, and each season comes with different activities to focus on. Additionally, a 2019 study showed how change in seasons in real life can have a correlation with players' gameplay habits. For example, changes in temperature and exposure to daylight influenced moods, game genre choices, and hours played. If real-life change of seasons can influence a person's mood and gaming habits, can in-game seasons do the same thing? And if the music in this game, or any game for that matter, can provide seasonal information to the listener, how is it achieved? I will present to you Stardew Valley's spring, summer, fall, and winter topics by identifying the elements in the music that correlate to physical aspects of each season. Spring is the first season you encounter when beginning the game. In spring, you will plant crops, forage for flowers in the new expansive game world. Later in game play, spring will follow winter. It offers more farming opportunities in the empty fields of winter. I will play a portion of the track called Spring Wild Horseradish Jam while I share some YouTube comments that may give us insight into what the average listener hears. Listeners claim that the music reminds them of gardening, fishing, sunlight, flowers, and overall spring vibes. Comments to my survey describe this track as sounding nature-based, bright and sunny, light and happy, or sounding of renewal and new life. With each season, I will present physical aspects of the season and some musical concepts found in the track that may be associated with that season. Focusing on Wild Horseradish Jam, the track opens with birds chirping and plucked strings arpeggiating major chords, along with an overall bright, sunny instrumentation at a moderate tempo. Ascending bass and melodic lines provide imagery of growing crops and awakening from hibernation. Wild Horseradish Jam also parallels with the opening track of the game. Pictured here, these openings are nearly identical in tonal and motivic content. Let's listen, first to the opening track, Stardew Valley Overture. Now to the beginning of Wild Horseradish Jam. This parallel between the title screen's music and Wild Horseradish Jam may remind the player of new beginnings and fresh starts that we experience with each new year. In Stardew Valley, each season has 3 musical cues. When your character awakens each day, they have the potential to hear one of these. On rainy days, the music is replaced by more environmental sounds of rain and wildlife, and no musical track plays. In addition to Wild Horseradish Jam, there are 2 other cues associated with spring. The valley comes alive, and it's a big world outside. In the left column, you will see musical ideas that appear in all spring cues, and in the right column, you will find ideas that occur in most spring cues. All the spring tracks feature a fade-in introduction and a layering of instrumentation and melodic and harmonic lines at the beginning. This likely contributes again to awakening and growth ideas. I will play a clip from the beginning of It's a Big World Outside, and you may notice this layering in. Additionally, I'd like to note that all the spring cues feature a fade-out moment, where the instruments are unlayered and for a moment there are just a few chords or simple lines being played, allowing for the more natural sounds to take priority. This may be what listeners refer to as sounding nature-based. I see it as the game gently directing you to take a moment away from the busy planting to appreciate the beautiful nature around you in this new game world. The track then proceeds to layer lines back in. This textural growth and thinning contributes to the spring topic. In that clip, you may have noticed the triangle and sleigh bells, which are usually associated with winter. Here I believe the music evokes the chime of a cash register, reminding the player to go make some money. Finally, the spring cues share a figure that I call the growth motif. Above is a passage from It's a Big World Outside. Let's listen to this portion and hear the growing motif in the harp. Similar motion occurs in Wild Horseradish Jam, found on the bottom staff, again in the harp. These rapid ascending and descending lines reflect the rapid changes in spring as flowers are budding and blooming. I now take you to summer. This time of year, you'll spend more time harvesting than planting. It is a great time for fishing and making friends, who can usually be found hanging out at the beach or the ice cream stand. Let's return to Summer Tropicala, which we heard earlier in the presentation. Survey participants described this track as peppy and fun, made me want to dance, sounds like a celebration on the beach, sounds like life and movement. These elements are why they match Tropicala to summer. This track is in a Cuban pop style. This can be found in the chord progression, use of claves, timbale, and similar rhythms that we expect in this genre. These elements evoke warm climates. This track also implies live dance music with its use of drum set, tambourine, picked bass, claps, and strong downbeats. It is also in a typical verse-chorus form that one might expect in popular music, but is not typical in this game's soundtrack. These elements found in live popular music may remind the listener of a summer beach party or live musical festival that typically occurs during warm months. All summer cues feature syncopation, major modality, and similar instrumentation. The summer tracks are unified by the idea of the global south. While the summer tracks do not have so many musical similarities as the spring tracks, they all may be associated with a particular genre from the global south or warmer areas in the world. I've just demonstrated that Tropicala is in the style of Cuban pop music. The Sun Can Bend an Orange Sky features instrumentation and elements that are generally associated with the music from the country of India. Nature's Crescendo heavily features castanets and steel drums, along with similar pop components as Tropicala. The instrumentation and style leads me to associate it with music from the Caribbean and Afro-Cuban music. As you can see, the summer topic in Stardew Valley is created by alluding to styles found in the global south. By using music influenced by that which is made in warmer climate areas, we may associate this music with warm weather and therefore summer. Fall is the most lucrative season for planting and harvesting. It is also time to prepare for the long winter. We see a major shift in color from bright greens to warm brown, orange, and red. Survey participants said the fall track reminded them of falling leaves, a transition of energy between summer and winter, and that it had an eerie sound. Let's listen to the track Raven's Descent. We initially hear wind blowing and crow calls alongside ambient wood and chime-like timbres. All fall cues have similar woody instrumentation that likely prescribes imagery of fall's colorful trees. We then hear a slow descending wood flute melody. Highlighted in this example is the initial descending melody. Throughout the musical cue, descending lines evoke falling leaves. All fall tracks feature descending lines as well as long, simple legato melodies juxtaposed with a plucked accompaniment. Raven's Descent has 3 distinct sections defined by tonal area, melodic material, and instrumentation. While other tracks typically take on a cyclical form, Fall is the only season to have musical cues in this episodic form. This is reflective of the transitionary nature of the season. It is a time for change. Another track, The Smell of Mushroom, features 2 distinct sections marked by different melodic and harmonic material, as well as a slight change in instrumentation. As you can see, none of the sections provide a strong tonic or chords with obvious function. This tonal ambiguity reminds me of the varying autumn colors. Along with all the orange, brown, and red leaves mix into a beautiful collage just as these tonal colors blend. An example of this tonal ambiguity can be found beginning in the B section. We find chords that can be heard as either major or minor. I will play this portion and allow you to draw your own conclusions. Additionally, fall cues feature swirling embellishments providing imagery of leaves in the wind. Finally, the C section features metallic dings, which once again imply cash. Other fall cues and spring cues feature these sounds, likely because these are the 2 most profitable seasons in the game for planting. Finally, in winter, the fields and trees are bare. There are no crops to plant and harvest, and the animals remain indoors. Most winter forageable items have to be dug up to be found. Once again, there is a noticeable color shift to cool blues and whites. Let's listen again to the track Nocturne of Ice. 90% of my survey participants associated this track with winter. They described this cue as sounding sparse, open, and empty. Some said it sounded icy or cold. Others noticed that it was slower, calmer, and more somber than the others. Recently, Megan Lavengood has identified that heavy reverb, arpeggiated textures, metallic percussion, plugged strings, and omission of drums make up the salient features in most video game winter tracks. This is true in Stardew Valley as well. However, there is another concept present in this game's music that I would like to bring out. This comment in particular reflects my favorite aspect of this musical cue. The opening that you just heard feels bare and empty, maybe even sad. Then in this part that the comment references, it feels warm, like coming inside the house and sitting by the fireplace after a long day in the cold outdoors. How does the music accomplish this? The top score is from the beginning of Nocturne of Ice. Notice the alternating arpeggiation between a C chord and an A chord in the first part. While the third of both chords are present, these qualifying defining notes are suppressed. The thirds are placed in metrically weak positions in the upper voice, occurring on the and of 2, which is juxtaposed against the strong open fifth in the lower voice. The lack of prominent third, which would provide us with a major or minor tonality, is likely providing the empty, sad feeling that listeners felt. This is also reminiscent of the bare fields, emptiness, and winter depression. On the screen is the excerpt that the commenter described as expressing warmth and peacefulness. I will play the track beginning just before this moment. Despite the lack of activity and melody, it somehow feels fuller. All we hear are simple chords, but now we have complete chords. This is clearly C major for the first time in the track at nearly 2 minutes in. We have a progression of C major, E minor, F major, A minor 7 to C major. In fact, every winter musical cue features suppressed thirds in the beginning portion. Here on the top score, you will see an excerpt from The Wind Can Be Still. The top and bottom stabs represent two different synthesizers. The bottom synthesizer featuring clear chords, lacking the third. The bottom score is from Ancient, and again, you can very clearly see a chord formed, missing the third. This lack of prominent thirds, along with the metallic percussion, reverb, arpeggiated textures, plucked portions, and omission of drums, make up the winter topic in Stardew Valley. In conclusion, the instrumentation, melodic shape, form, and harmony in each track reflect physical aspects of each season. These elements shape the seasonal topics that provide affect to the player. This immerses the player deeper into the game and tells the player what activities to focus on. In my future research, I hope to explore seasonal topics in similar casual games, such as the Harvest Moon series. Additionally, seasonal affects and topics may be found in other genres of music, and perhaps linking imagery to what we hear can help us better understand it. Thank you.
Adriana, thank you so much for the wonderful presentation on Stardew Valley. Wonderful virtual applause for Adriana. Yay! Now we shall begin the wonderful Q&A section. We're going to take about, again, 10 minutes for Q&A to ask Adriana any burning questions you have about her research on Stardew Valley. Again, please input any questions you have into the Q&A function of Zoom, which can be found in the bottom panel of Zoom. And then you can also say in the chat, you want to say something live, we will unmute you and you can ask live. So let's go ahead and wait for some questions to roll on in.
I also have a QR code if you are interested in having the paper form of this paper, or my business card, which is in Stardew Valley theme.
That's so cute. I love it. Thank you so much for sharing that. Hey, while we're waiting for stuff to roll in, can I ask a question?
Please.
Okay, so my question actually is on sound design, more like sound effects. So this is a farming game. So you have like a bunch of your hoeing sounds, your throwing seeds into the ground type sounds. And we're talking about affect and that kind of thing. Do you think that those sounds distract from the sound design at all? Do you think it brings you in more immersion wise?
I don't think it distracts at all. Actually, there's a really interesting paper that I cite here. Where is it? I know it's in here somewhere. That's on Stardew Valley. Did I not put it in my bibliography? That's insane. But she talks about how Stardew Valley is like a sound walk. And it kind of sends you like back to nature, and it brings you back in Harvest Moon games. The music is played on repeat over and over again, but in Stardew Valley you hear it when you wake up, and then when it's over, and you just if you don't enter a building where music starts again, then you just sit in the silence and you enjoy the nature sounds and the sounds of walking and hoeing and all those things, as you said. And I think that's intentional.
How cool is that? I love that. Okay, very neat.
Kate Galloway. Kate
Galloway does that research. Cool. I'm gonna have to look that up. Okay, neat. We've got some things popping up in the Q&A. I'll hop over there. I'm sorry. Peter Schertz mentions and asks, Adriana, this was a well-designed slide deck. Did you do the music transcriptions yourself, or were they already available? Maybe you mentioned this and I missed it. He mentions a little later, oh, I see the piano collections in the bibliography. Did you use those specifically, or did you do a little bit of your own transcriptions?
I used the piano collections. I, of course, compared it orally, and they're pretty much just direct transcriptions from the game audio, given the limitations of the piano. I plan to use part of this as my master's thesis, and so some of them I'll need to have my own transcription just so that you can see each of the different instruments and lines more clearly, but it's definitely helpful to have this this transcription available. And Eric Barone did work with the composer, the arranger of it. So
That's so cool. Thank you so much. We've got some comments in the chat. The first one is from Brett, and Brett says, the fall music to me, the most musically surprising. It reminds me of the music from Conal Karach, excuse me, in Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles, which is definitely intended as a creepy setting. And that's one of my favorite parts of Crystal Chronicles as a big Crystal Chronicles fan. What do you think about that?
I haven't considered that. I haven't thought about Crystal Chronicles since I was, many years younger. But with fall and spring, I find that they're the most ambiguous, whereas as like summer and winter, there's a lot of summer and winter music just existing in the world. We have holidays associated with winter that make that a strong topic. But with fall, there's like Halloween style creepy music, but then there's also kind of some of Stardew Valley's music isn't quite that Halloween creepiness. It has just some other thing that I'm trying to get at, that I'm trying to find, and I'm hoping to look at some other games and maybe find a unifying topic on what is fall.
Cool. That's awesome. Another comment we had that came in, another question that came in through the chat. This was from Molly H. Molly says, thank you so much for your work, Adriana. Love your analysis. I was curious if concernedape himself provides any insight into his compositional process, or if he himself has spoken about his intentions when trying to craft a seasonal track.
I have been trying to get in contact with him. It is difficult because he is currently working on another game. But I have seen like some Twitter comments and some interviews, but no, I not specifically. I would really like to get in touch with him and see what he was thinking when he made these seasonal tracks.
Wonderful. Do we have any other questions for Adriana? Oh, we had one just pop in. Just look at that. Okay, our next question is from Ari R. And their question is, I've never played Stardew Valley, but I know in Harvest Moon or Story Seasons, as it's also the other side of the coin is also known, you can change the soundtrack settings to play seasonal music out of season. Is this possible in Stardew Valley? And what kind of effect do you think it has on players' experience of the seasonal effect?
It is possible when you're in late game in Stardew, you can get a jukebox given to you, and you can place the jukebox on your farm and change the music. But it's really only in the area where you can place the jukebox. It doesn't change the music in other areas. There's also the jukebox. Thank you, Elizabeth Hamilton. You can change the jukebox in the Stardrop Saloon as well, and that works early game. But as far as the experience of seasonal affect, I'm not really sure, because every time when you do that, the player is choosing to do it intentionally. And I mean, I listen to these songs year round. I think it's good study music. Maybe if you might be in winter and there's not much going on, and you go into the saloon and you want to listen to Wild Horseradish Jam because it's such a bop, and it just brings you out of that winter depression. That's an interesting question. Thank you for it.
We've got two more questions here. I'm going to ask Coles, and then Dorian, we see your question. What I'm going to do is I'm going to save your question. We're going to do Myrna's paper, and then we're going to loop back around at the end, and we'll ask Adriana the question at the end again. The Coles question, which we'll end with, and again, Dorian, we're going to save yours, I promise. Coles question here is, do you think the struggle to define fall musically is somewhat a product of fall being a differently experienced season? Sometimes it feels long, and other times it feels like it's 2 days.
That's really interesting. I haven't considered that. I'm from the South, and I know that the fall is a very ambiguous season because it feels like summer and then a week of fall and then winter. But to me, fall overall is ambiguous. Like the colors that you're experiencing, the weather, the time of year, like with especially in academics, everything is just happening. But it's all so different. And so I think we also don't have Thanksgiving music really, which is our fall holiday. So I think maybe that lack of musical association with holiday music might be another reason why it's hard to define fall musically.
Wonderful. You know what? Thank you very much. I'm going to go ahead and have you answer Dorian's question. We can flux a little bit here. Let's answer Dorian's question. Dorian asks, "Hi, I missed your presentation, but I wanted to ask about the use of tempo in video games. What is the role of tempo in video game soundtracks? Do you think the leisurely tempo contributes to the casual nature of the gameplay in Stardew Valley?"
Oh wow, that's a whole can of worms. There's much written about. I've heard many people talk about tempo in different kinds of games. In Stardew Valley, the seasonal music in particular, the summer tracks are more upbeat. They're a faster tempo, and then spring is kind of in the middle, and then winter and fall are the slowest tempo. I think in that way that helps provide the affect to the player of like summer is a fast time, it's a fun time to like go around and like see your friends, and winter is a slow time, there's not as much to do. But yeah, other than the summer songs, I'd say overall it's kind of a more casual walking tempo, which would make sense in Stardew Valley since it is kind of a more casual played game. Although if you have dived really deep into Stardew Valley, it becomes a lot less casual later in the game. I recommend you do that.
Thank you so much, Adriana. We appreciate your wonderful presentation, and another wonderful virtual round of applause for Adriana. Thank you so much.